When you walk by faith, there are going to be waves of root awakenings that you'll go through. Now, what is a root awakening? A root awakening, right, I said it, root awakening. Root simply means something is inconsiderate towards your expectations. In daily life, when we call someone rude, we simply mean they don't value what we expect. If someone expects you to say good morning instead of hi, someone just says hi, we consider them rude. Why? Because they don't allow us to dictate their behavior. That's how fallen mankind is. When someone doesn't allow us to dictate their behavior, we tend to call them rude. So society expects you to allow them to dictate your behavior, and you're not allowed to ask any questions. If you do this without asking questions, you're praised. But okay, so rude in this context simply means unexpected and, well, very shocking. Okay? So, understand the following. When you walk by faith, you will awaken to true facts you haven't noticed before. And those true facts will shock you. Okay, let me explain. Let's say now you begin to walk by faith, and then suddenly you realize that, this church I'm attending, they never talk about walking in the power. They never talk about being active in the right now. And very quickly realize that this church is satanic and they're just there to trap you. And then you'll think, you know what, let me find the better church. And then a journey begins of years in which you realize, hold on a minute, it's almost all those churches that are in bondage. And then you realize that what you thought Scripture meant, it's not really what Scripture meant, it's just an interpretation given to you by society. And then maybe a few years later after that, you realize that, there are many secret societies involved in those churches. There's Freemasonry involved in those churches. Hold on a minute, why don't you use the same hand signs as those devil worshippers? Now there's a second awakening. There may be a third awakening in which you realize, hold on a minute, why are the people out there, the public, so comfortable with this? This is into your face. Devil worship and the public just allows it to happen. But then you may have a fourth awakening which you realize, hold on a minute, if people are so comfortable allowing this to happen, it means that the people are in on it. So little by little, wave by wave, you'll see the truth as it is without any filters. And those rude awakenings are going to be uncomfortable. I know it. We will all go through them. Some of you already went through rude awakenings even before you became born again, so you're already used to it. Some of you are not. Listen, you will face those rude awakenings. And those rude awakenings, you will experience them as rude, you will experience them as unpleasant, you will experience them as a form of harassment that you're exposed to all those facts. Listen, that means you're healing. That means you're on your way to victory because you're not trapped anymore by the scams. Listen, once you awaken to something, there's no way you can go back. For example, the moment you see that the masses are in on much of the violence that they so-called fight against, you can't unsee that anymore. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it can be that you had close friends who all believed in conforming to society. They saw society as this collective movement of decency and morality. But now you have facts that prove to you that society is the opposite. Now, then you realize as a second awakening that those close friends of yours were aware of it a long time ago, but they prefer the illusion in above the painful reality. Because they don't want to deal with the painful reality, they just want to be left alone. Now, once you are awakened to all of this, you can never remain on such close terms with them anymore. It's not going to happen because you realize that the only thing you have in common with them is ignorance and darkness. Now, you had the most ignorance because you weren't aware of who they really were. Now you realize they are narcissistic themselves. Now you realize they are enablers of evil. So now you will never be comfortable having a long conversation with them anymore. So those friendships will fade away. Maybe you work in finance somewhere, and later you realize that the financial world has a lot of dark agendas. can you remain working in that field? No, and people know you are aware. Because you are aware, you are a threat to the establishment. They'll try to get rid of you. So some people don't even want you around anymore because you're awakened. Maybe you are awakened and you're about to marry someone. But the woman you're about to marry comes from a narcissistic household. She's been narcissically abused since was a little baby. And the whole family is in on it. She comes from a background with many malignant narcissists. Now you are the healthy one. And your fiance is not a narcissist. She's just damaged, but she's willing to become better. Do you think your future in-laws are going to be happy with you? No, because the moment she marries you, or you marry her, and you live together, because she is in contact with your health, she will realize how unhealthy her background was. She will begin to process things. And from that point on, they're going to use her as an energetic sponge anymore. So those relatives will do their best to sabotage your engagement so both of you never get married. Or even if you do get married, they'll try to sabotage the marriage. So when you are awakened, you are a threat to the scams of the world. And the moment you are a threat to the scams of the world will treat you as a threat. Either they will openly attack you and tell you to your face they don't want you around. That happens rarely. But what often happens is they will pretend to be on your side, pretend to be a truther like you, or pretend to be, anti-fraud warrior like you, or pretend to be on the good side that you want to be on. Whatever movement you're in that awakens you, they want to be part of that movement and they want you to think they're on your side, but they're not. They're just there to sabotage you. I'm telling you, the moment you are awakened, you can't de-awaken. It doesn't exist. You can't unsee once you see something. You can't unhear what you've heard. And here's the thing. Some people, when they go through the first awakening or the first root awakening, they tend to freeze. They then say, no, this is way too much for me. I don't want this anymore. And they go into toxic denial, and many such people turn into reprobates. Because listen to what I'm saying here. All human beings that remain alive on the earth will go through a first root awakening sooner or later, often sooner. Those that end up reprobates are those who don't want to face the reality. Because once you face the reality, you will also face the solution, who is Christ. But those who don't want to face reality can never face the solution, who is Christ. So, because they oppose reality, they are also opposed to the solution, who is Christ. And any solution, daily life, they will refuse because they're just fleeing. Such people will become abusive, they'll become mentally deranged over time, and they'll become dangerous human beings to be around. Some of them will turn into apex predators preying on other people, seeking to exploit the masses. Why? Because they don't want to face the first awakening they went through. Listen, those root awakenings, you will have them during this lifetime. There's nothing wrong with them. And there's another thing. When you have your awakening, that is also an awakening to the community around you. Because let's say now that people are accusing you of being rude all the time, saying you have no manners, who raised you or whatever. Let's say you believe in this thing called politeness that society taught you. You're going to feel bad, you're going to feel guilty, and try to apologize and to make it up to them. But the moment, and they are using this mind trick on you to get narcissistic supply out of you. They're looking this mind trick on you to control you and to attack you just to feel relieved. They have no self-worth, and they derive the self-worth from destroying yours. Okay? But the moment you realize that, 1 minute, politeness and rudeness, those are just social constructs. And why are people entitled to those expectations from me? Just like that. And if I don't give in, they have right to attack me. The moment you awaken mentally and you begin to see through stuff, the moment they come to you to do their game again, to realize, it feels different. It doesn't feel like before. They won't get the high anymore that they used to. Then they realize, oh crap, this individual's awakened. Then they feel quite embarrassed being around you. And then they'll begin to avoid you. Some people were arguing with you, fighting you. Some people wanted to come and attack you. Some people even picked up weapons, whether it's guns or knives, whatever, to come and finish the job with you. But suddenly they stopped. Why? Because you were awakened. And once you are awakened, that's a spiritual effect on the environment. When you are awakened, People know that you see through their nonsense. People know that you see through their pride. People know that you see through their scams. And once they're face to face with you, knowing that you're seeing through them, that's very, very uncomfortable. For them, it's a similar feeling as if they are under the shower and someone has a spy cam and millions of people are watching them. Or they're on the toilet and there's a spy cam in the toilet and everyone is seeing them. That's the type of degree of embarrassment they experience mentally when they realize you're on them. So the moment you're on them, they'll become very uncomfortable. And now you need to watch out. Because when people know you're on them, they often just begin to avoid you. But if they can't avoid you, they're likely to escalate and to cause a lot of drama. And sometimes that drama can end up in homicide. Sometimes even multiple homicides. So, you going through root awakenings is a good thing for you. Just realize that your awakening will also be an awakening to society that they can't get away with everything anymore. That's why the moment you have your first root awakening or your first 2 awakenings, and you begin to ask questions, people realize, this individual is onto us. Then they'll try to take you out. When you look at many of those cold cases out there, and many of those homicide cases that have been resolved over time, you realize that the primary police investigation was conducted very poorly. You realize that the public wasn't really interested in having the case solved. And later, when the cold case is solved, you realize why. But when you look at the life of the victim, before the victim was taken out, you realize that the victim began to wake up. Maybe you have a girl, 17 years old. She took a ride to Atlanta, for example, and she ended up missing for 20 or 30 years. Later we found out she passed away, someone killed her. And now the cold case investigators realized that before this teenage girl went missing, her eyes opened to how messed up people were treating her. And she began to ask questions, began to confront people. And the cold case detectives also find out that people suddenly began to treat her better. And so when people began to treat her better, she suddenly vanished. So then the cold case detectives realized, this is what happened. She awakened to the bullshit of the community, and she held people accountable, and those people became very uncomfortable with her, a 16-year-old, holding them accountable. So those adults began to murmur and murmur and murmur, and they developed this negative climate towards her. Then there was someone around them, a lowlife, who heard all this complaining, and this lowlife was filled with frustration, just wanted the targets to escalate on. So this guy thought, you know what, everyone's murmuring, complaining about this Lisa anyway, so you know what? One day can escalate against her, people won't bother too much by it. Of course, I may go to prison, but you know what, let me just escalate, I just want to dump somewhere. So this guy began to talk in the defense of this Lisa, and people comes down. But this guy only spoke in the defense of Lisa because he tended to win Lisa's trust to later dump on her. And he did it, and she ended up dying. So the public generated a negative climate towards her, which led to this predator feeling comfortable doing the crime. So both the predator as well as the community are responsible for her dying, for her murder. And that is why when she went missing, people already knew that something bad happened. Nobody wanted to be solved. Nobody wanted to be held accountable. Listen, when you awaken, your awakening is the same as a nuclear bomb going off. If you drop a nuclear bomb right now on any city, anywhere, there's going to be a big impact. People are going to hear the sound. People are going to see the clouds forming, and then the smoke will fall down, and a big portion of that city will be gone, and for years afterwards, nobody can live around there because the soil is contaminated. Now, when you awaken, it is as if a nuclear bomb is going off in the spirit realm. It has a ripple effect on reality when you awaken. And people around you, whether they're spiritual mind or not, they can feel that there's something different about you. Maybe you experienced this. Maybe you used to be in the world. Okay, now you're born again, you're walking by faith, and people suddenly encounter you years later and think, whoa, there's something different with you. Or maybe 2 weeks after becoming born again, people notice, whoa, there's something different about you. You've awakened. Or maybe, even before you became born again, you watched some documentaries on YouTube about the bankers and all of that. And suddenly you realize, whoa, is this how messed up society is? And after watching that documentary, you were still an unbeliever, but people realized when they encountered you, there's something different about you. You realize that people began to become more angry towards you. Before you watch those documentaries, people used to be just walk and pass by you, nothing happened. But the moment you became aware, energetically, you disconnected from the negative tension of the environment. And all those other people who are into the negative tension, they experience rejection when they encounter you. Now look at this. You never told anyone when you watched those documentaries. You never even spoke about those conspiracy theories nor any of those conspiracy facts. But the fact that you are alert now about certain stuff changed your energetic emission from your energy fields. And because you're not clogged anymore into that negative tension of denial of your surroundings feel like you're different. They feel rejected because you're not participating in their negative tension. And this sense of rejection, they're taking out on you. That's why you can arrive somewhere and suddenly strangers are looking at you and they don't like you, they can't stand you. And you think, what goes on? You're not on the same frequency of negativity as they are. Okay? Anytime you awaken, there's going to be consequences. Anytime you awaken to this role, there's going to be some type of retaliation. Even unbelievers, those without Christ, face retaliation when they awaken. How much more believers who have the power to shut down the violence of the world. So, listen, I went through rude awakenings, many of them. And every time I awakened, there was some change in people's behavior towards me. There was some type of retaliation that came in my circumstances. In circumstances around me, I mean. So, maybe the difficulties you're going through now are the result of you awakening. Why? Because the masses can't get away with shamelessly exploiting you anymore. So now they have to treat you the proper way. But that means they need to self-reflect and realize that they're not proper. And the moment that happens, that embarrassment and humiliation is going to cause them to mentally collapse. So either they mentally collapse because they don't want to comply with justice, or they comply with justice and they change, but they don't want to change, they don't want to comply with justice, so that's not going to happen. So because they don't want to comply with justice, they just want to flee, there are only two things left. Either they comply against their own will, against their own desire, and that will mentally harm them and afflict them for the rest of their lives. And they will have to carry the narcissistic injury they've been put in their realistic place. Either that, or they'll lose it to get rid of you. And often the second happens. So when you go through your awakening, realize that your awakening has triggered danger. And that's why us who walk by faith, we are ahead of stuff. In the Old Testament, it's written somewhere, yes, in the book of Ecclesiastes, that in much knowledge, there's much grief. That's what it meant. Why is there much grief in much knowledge? It is because the world will retaliate against you once you are alert. But here's the thing. We as saints, we don't have to go to the grief of having much knowledge because we have the power to overcome retaliation. So we are not afraid of relatives abandoning us. We're not afraid of being sold out to the authorities. We're not afraid of people suddenly turning on us and wishing us dead. Why? Because we walk in the real power. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ, saints, and be at peace.